All right. Now, the sad but seemingly inevitable path of meme coins, what we're seeing here is that a meme coin was launched, was minted for Tyler Robinson, the accused killer of Charlie Kirk, within minutes of the suspect's arrest. Yeah, very dark and, I don't know, just indicative of the degeneracy in the meme coin space that any type of attention is monetized through a meme coin. All right, welcome back to Bitcoin. Welcome back to Bitcoin.com's The Weekly. I'm Graham Stone, joined by Bitcoin.com news David Sensel. Let's get into the weekly recap of the biggest stories in the Bitcoin and cryptoverse, starting off with Bitcoin.com's Charlie Kirk fundraiser.
Yeah, so obviously the Charlie Kirk assassination was the biggest news last week by far. Bitcoin.com has launched a fundraiser to support Charlie Kirk's family with Bitcoin and crypto donations. You might be asking yourself, why did Bitcoin.com, a crypto-focused company, do this? Isn't this a little outside of our purview? Not many people know that Charlie Kirk was a Bitcoin supporter. Why would he be a Bitcoin supporter, a crypto supporter? Because he was a defender of freedom and pushing back against kind of government overreach. And this, of course, made him an advocate for something like Bitcoin and crypto, which I think by its nature is a check on these kinds of things. I have a couple examples of this. Charlie Kirk championed Roger Ver's cause against kind of the lawfare that was happening and still kind of is happening. Last year, Roger Ver and I believe his attorney appeared on the Charlie Kirk show, and they talked for a long time about his situation and what was happening, how the previous administration and administrations before that were kind of using the Wild West days of crypto when we didn't really know how taxation worked. They were kind of weaponizing this to attack Ver and, quite frankly, other people. Kirk was supportive of Ver in that regard. More recently, Charlie Kirk petitioned for Ross Ulbricht's freedom for the pardon. I didn't know about this, actually, but Charlie Kirk, behind the scenes, campaigned to convince U.S. President Donald Trump to pardon Ross Ulbricht. Ross Ulbricht said, quote, "He never took credit for it, but he played a big role in my freedom in many ways. When President Trump won the election, he asked Charlie what was the number one thing he could do for him. And Charlie replied, free Ross." Kirk obviously had connections with Bitcoin and crypto, and I think it's obvious that he saw this as a kind of freedom enabling. Anyway, yeah, you can support Kirk through the Bitcoin.com fundraiser, donate with Bitcoin and crypto.
All right. Now, the sad but seemingly inevitable path of meme coins, what we're seeing here is that a meme coin was launched, was minted for Tyler Robinson, the accused killer of Charlie Kirk, within minutes of the suspect's arrest. Yeah, very dark and, I don't know, just indicative of the degeneracy in the meme coin space that any type of attention is monetized through a meme coin.
Yeah, I mean, this is something like you said, it's almost like an inevitable path that this would take, right? Like we long talked about pump.funds craziness from last year where they had to turn off the live streams from the just degenerate things people were doing to garner attention. And so it only fits in some kind of like macabre logic that assassinations or things of that nature would also be monetized by would-be meme coin developers. So yeah, kind of disgusting. But like you said, it's going to happen.
All right, let's move on to Solana news.
Solana was on fire last week, and aside from being the chain where maybe some of these Kirk meme coins were launched, I'm sure that's where it was. The reason that Solana was on fire is because people were trying to basically front run the news of Solana ETFs incoming and the DATs that are incoming. And also, just quite frankly, Solana is the chain with a lot of the activity thus far, right? So it gained about 24% from last Sunday to this Sunday. It's since fallen off a little bit, but it massively outpaced Bitcoin and Ethereum both. Solana is still by far the biggest chain for raw transaction volume. So on the revenue side, Solana has maintained steady footing. Its 30-day chain metrics. Let's see, active wallets. It remained the largest blockchain by user base with over 75.5 million active wallets. Transactions, it dominated activity with more than 2 billion transactions during last month. And for fees, Solana generated $35.2 million in fees, which is a slight increase over previous months. So lots of activity on Solana still, despite kind of meme coin season waning from earlier this year.
Now, Bitwise CIO Matt Hogan is arguing that Solana could see a season similar to Bitcoin and Ethereum if ETFs are approved and corporate treasuries step in, supporting that the strong fundamentals around Solana and upcoming network upgrades to reinforce that. Now, he points to a potential catalyst, which would be the October 10th expected ruling from the SEC, where they're going to be deciding whether multiple Solana ETF applications are approved. That would potentially drive major inflows into the token. Let's talk about Forward Industries, which is a new public Solana DAT.
Yeah, so Forward Industries kind of launched last week, I guess. It's a Solana treasury company. It's a new DAT. It is now the largest Solana treasury company. It holds 6.82 million SOL, and that SOL was purchased for an average price of around $232 per token for a total of $1.58 billion. Good Lord. The purchase was funded by $1.65 billion in private investment through a PIPE, private investment in public equity. This closed last week, September 11th. The backers, the people who got into the PIPE, the backers were led by the likes of Galaxy Digital, Jump Crypto, and Multicoin Capital. I'm sure these are companies that you've all heard of. They're kind of like Solana, pro Solana companies, although they work in all throughout the space. Forward Industries described itself as the largest Solana-focused digital asset treasury financing to date, and the goal is to, quote, increase SOL per share. And they're going to do this through active management, not passive holding. This to me indicates that it's going to be a different strategy than the company formerly known as MicroStrategy, which I feel like has a much more passive way of doing things. They just buy Bitcoin seemingly at the worst times with no playbook to sell Bitcoin ever. They're just slowly accumulating it. So this is going to be actively managed. I'm curious to see what that actually means. All the SOL that has been purchased is staked. So they're kind of compensating for the erosion that happens from emissions. I think it's the chairman of Forward Industries is Kyle Samani, the outspoken Solana advocate and infamous non-believer in Bitcoin. And he said, quote, we're going to build the world's largest Solana treasury company. And I think maybe Samani is maybe has the best chance to become the Michael Saylor or the Tom Lee of Solana DATs. What do you think, Graham?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, who else could it have been? Maybe Mike Novogratz?
Yeah, maybe. But Novogratz is kind of he dabbles in all the different projects, so he would be I think a more muddled past. Samani seems to be very much Solana aligned in terms of what the future is going to look like, because he doesn't even believe that Bitcoin has a future, which is eyebrow raising. But I appreciate the heterodox view.
Okay, so let's move on to USDH. USDH it's no more than just a reserved ticker on Hyperliquid for US dollar stablecoin. Yet when Hyperliquid announced that this reserve ticker would be, they put out a request for proposals to see and then there'd be a vote to see who would be the winner of this ticker. It had 7 high-profile stablecoin projects vying to win that coveted ticker. You had Native Markets, Paxos, Athena, Sky, Agora, Bastion, and Frax. Many on crypto Twitter were impressed that these bidders were effectively writing like love letters about Hyperliquid, kind of a bachelor type approach here.
Sorry, they were
fighting
also
each other.
Yeah, like the Bachelor. You had the guy, and then you have all the women kind of trying to tear each other down, air out each other's dirty laundry, and the same thing was happening on crypto Twitter last week. It was quite entertaining to see these normally cooperative projects, or at least not combative, go at each other and try to prove that the other was worse than they were.
Yeah, everyone recognizing the value of Hyperliquid and the importance of being part of that game there, especially with regards to their stablecoin pair.
Yeah, so let's just briefly walk through this. Last Sunday, or not last Sunday, like a week ago Sunday, we reported that Paxos released a proposal to issue USDH. This is going to be Hyperliquid's first regulated stablecoin, kind of hopefully being recognized by the community as the canonical stablecoin, and kind of get promoted on all the dApps and via community activity. Soon after that initial Paxos proposal, there were other big projects proposing. You had Agora Finance. This is a startup founded by Nick Van Eck. That name might ring a bell. This is the son of Jan Van Eck, which is the CEO of Van Eck Asset Management Firm, the traditional finance juggernaut. So Agora released a proposal. Then Frax Finance, a DeFi darling that pioneered a fractional algorithmic stablecoin. They've moved on from that, but that's kind of their roots. They also released a proposal. So it was already starting to get crowded at this point. You had, again, big names from kind of the traditional financial side via Van Eck, but also these kind of older, I would say, very reputable projects like Frax throwing their hat in the ring.
Yeah, and Sky, formerly known as MakerDAO, they also proposed a decentralized issuance model for USDH called Bastion, and it's a platform focused on regulated stablecoin issuance. And they outlined a neutral infrastructure built for scale and payments, exchanges, and trading. Then you had Native Markets. This is sort of the Hyperliquid aligned one, led by a guy named Max Feege through Bridge Infrastructure. They proposed a globally compliant issuance with direct minting on Hyper EVM and Hypercore transfers enabled at launch. And the bid included Stripe-linked fiat rails for on and off ramps, ensuring Genius Act compatibility from day one.
Yeah, I would just note that Bastion was not a MakerDAO thing. That was a separate project, but everything else is right.
Oh, thanks for that correction.
It's all good. So this all seemed really, really nice and great and cool. However, I think about midweek last week, around Wednesday, if I'm remembering correctly, this great, awesome competition might not be what it seems. Haseeb Quresh, a managing partner at Dragonfly, he went on X to post that half of the other bidders believed that the validators were solely interested in the Native Markets proposal and only the native markets proposal, right? So according to Koresh, despite all these pitches and proposals, that the validators who were going to be voting on these were not interested in any of them because it had been pre-decided in a backroom deal that native markets was the winner. And so all of this was just kind of political theater, which would have been quite sad. Now, later, after Koresh's accusation, you had major validators, including from Nansen, who I think have the largest non-Hyperliquid validator, and Galaxy Digital, which also has a very large validator. They came out and said, "No, he's wrong. We're not doing this. We haven't predetermined who's going to win whatsoever." And to his credit, Koresh reposted these responses to his accusation. That being said, the winner of this whole ordeal was indeed native markets. So the Hyperliquid validators have chosen native markets to issue USDH. This is the network's first native stablecoin, and a test phase for mints and redeems will begin within a couple of days before a wider rollout. So was Haseeb right? Was he wrong? I don't know. Native markets won anyway. Interesting turn of events here. But I mean, we have a winner.
Yeah. I mean, Haseeb noted that a lot of people reached out to him saying that, basically, it was a done deal from the start. This is all just decentralization theater. And perhaps supporting that is the fact that native markets proposal was ready like within minutes of the request for proposals that was issued by Hyperliquid. I'm not sure how damning that is, but they certainly knew about this beforehand.
So, I mean, I don't really have strong opinions on this at all, actually, because I just feel like there's too much uncertainty around it. I hope it wasn't as completely done deal as they said. When you have major validators come out and say that this is not the case, I mean, everybody's incentivized to kind of maybe not tell the truth, right? Like, there was a lot of replies to Haseeb being like, "Oh, imagine that Dragonfly, they have a lot of investments in the alternative, like the native markets projects like Sky, I think Agora, maybe I can't remember.
Athena too, I think.
Yeah, Athena as well. So they all, it's like they're the one company or the one project that they maybe don't have investment in is the one that he's accusing of foul play. So I don't know. Who knows? But we'll see moving forward. In any case, I do think overall this is a good thing. So this, even if it was just theater.
I think it points to just how important stablecoins are becoming in the crypto space. And on that note, Tether has unveiled plans to launch a US-focused stablecoin. So Tether, of course, has their global stablecoin, USDT. They're launching USAT, USAT, a Genius-compliant, regulated dollar-backed stablecoin. And they're naming Bo Hines as the CEO. Bo Hines was the former executive director of the White House Crypto Council who stepped down from that role not too long ago. And it turns out this is his new role. USAT. So the plan, it seems, is to target businesses and institutions rather than retail, and target businesses and institutions that want a digital cash alternative governed by strict standards and backed by transparent reserves. So they're aiming to tighten the link between stablecoins and U.S. financial infrastructure with USAT. On the plumbing of USAT, it'll be running on Hadron by Tether, which is a real-world assets platform, and Anchorage Digital, the first federally regulated crypto bank, will serve as the Genius Act compliant issuer, while Cantor Fitzgerald is slated to be the reserve custodian and primary dealer.
the name to me was it raised my eyebrows. USAT, like that seems like it's maybe trying to play off of the Bitcoin SAT, right? Like Satoshis, except this is about a stable coin. So I don't know. It was a weird, for me, the ticker name is a weird choice. I don't know if that seems strange to you, Grant, but I was just like, USAT.
A little bit, but I mean, you could read it as USAT, USA Tether.
Yeah, no, I get it. I get it too. But just the SAT because of crypto,
Yeah,
stood out to me. But yeah,
I think USAT rolls off the tongue better than USAT, so people will probably end up calling it USAT.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm not sure. Yeah, this last story for the week is quite interesting.
Oh yeah. So the Bank of England is proposing hard caps on individual and institutional stablecoin holdings. Wild. They're proposing 10,000 to 20,000 pounds, which is about 13.5 to 27K USD for individuals, and 10 million pounds, which is about 1.35 million for businesses.
Maybe 13.5 million. 13.5.
Okay, 13.5. Yeah, you're right. There we go. I can't math. So these would be caps on holdings for businesses and individuals and businesses. The Bank of England frames the proposal as a transitional measure to protect financial stability by preventing large, rapid outflows from banks that could weaken credit provision. And they plan a consultation later this year about this. Graham, we've talked a lot about how countries or especially central banks are going to deal with the US's very vocal plans to push out US dollar denominated stablecoins to the rest of the world, that is eager for these stablecoins. This looks like an early example of a central bank trying to deal with this, maybe it almost seems like existential problem coming their way.
Yeah, I think we're going to see many more of these. And by the way, the critics are criticizing the Bank of England's proposal here, Coinbase, the UK Crypto Asset Business Council, and they're saying, okay, like, first of all, this is going to put the industry in England, people in the industry in England at a huge disadvantage. But I don't know, perhaps more importantly, it's just going to be impossible to actually enforce this. Like, how would you do it? Basically, you would require, you'd have to identify token holders with digital IDs, constant wallet coordination. It would slow down payments innovation, cross-border efficiency. I guess that's the point of the Bank of England. That's what they want to do. So
yeah, I mean, I think
not surprising.
Yeah, the easiest thing that they could do is kind of what was done up to this point for stablecoins in general, which is you just gatekeep the gatekeepers, so the on-ramps and off-ramps, your exchanges, your banks, things of that nature. They would be there to see flows in and out. Like you said, there would be no strong way to stop this, but honestly, it would stop most of it, right? Because if you have like a big lump sum of money, $1 million, for example, $2 million, that would be easy to flag and track. And so I think it would make a big dent in that. And basically it would turn England into a crypto pariah, I think, very quickly. Weird news. Like I spoke with Crypto Hayes. I spoke with Arthur Hayes about this, and he said central banks and countries were going to push back against the US's strategy. Here we have the pushback, and he also predicted that then the US would strike back. The administration would strike back with sanctions or tariffs or things of that nature. So if the Bank of England actually goes through with this, and there's no indication that this will actually happen, it's just a proposal, but if they were to go through this, then it would be interesting to see if Arthur Hayes is right in terms of the US then being like, okay, you guys are doing this, well, you know what, swap lines greatly reduced, maybe we're going to renegotiate this tariff stuff, or this kind of thing. And so yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this plays out.
Very interesting to see how this plays out. All right, David, I think that covers it for the week. Next week, we're going to be doing the weekly live from Korea Blockchain Week. So if you're there, come check it out. And if you're online, tune in. Have a great week, everyone.